Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. I'm your host Rob. This video we're going to do another fantasy battle that was requested. This is a fantasy battle that was supposed to be done by Friday. It was the second of two fantasy battles for the month of February, but with all the Godzilla stuff, things got pushed back. But here we are. It is time to do the fantasy battle, which pits Gamera against King Kong. Okay guys, welcome back. Now this was a very interesting matchup that somebody requested, and I gotta say, quite honestly, I don't see this being a very close match, but I will try to make this as fair as possible to give King Kong an opportunity, because quite frankly, when you look at the kind of enemies Gamera has faced, King Kong is quite a break from some of the things he's been through. But nonetheless, King Kong does have some exceptional qualities, and we're going to break him down first. Now, with King Kong, obviously there have been many different iterations of King Kong, but primarily he's not as big as most of the kaijus that we all know and love. However, in Godzilla vs. King Kong, he was scaled up quite a bit. So we're definitely going to use that size for this matchup to try and make things even. Now, originally, King Kong was not supposed to have the electricity that he had on his hands in that movie. In fact, he wasn't even supposed to be in that movie originally. So that's not a very common attribute, and I am not going to use that for this King Kong. But I think King Kong has some other attributes that are quite good. First of all, he's got phenomenal speed. I mean, he's going to be faster than Gamera. He's got exceptional, very strong, bone-breaking bludgeon attacks. I mean, he's a gorilla. This is what he does. While I think Gamera will have the advantage from the long-range aspect, I think King Kong can definitely do some significant damage if he gets inside. Now, of course, we all know they have 3 attacks, and each attack represents 1 range. So for a long-range attack for King Kong, he doesn't have projectiles. King Kong picks up rocks, boulders, trees, anything he can grab, and he will toss it. But toss it at great force, with great velocity, and believe me, it can cause some damage. Now for his mid-range attack, because he's a gorilla and he's got exceptional leaping ability, exceptional speed, he is going to have what I like to call a lunge attack. And this lunge attack allows him to pretty much take flight, not really fly, but leap at a very long distance, and basically almost drop kick and land on his opponent, and then proceed to bludgeon him with a series of pounds on their chest, like a real gorilla, like a gorilla you see when they take somebody down and they stand on their chest and they just wallop them non-stop. And I'm going to give him that attack. And I think that because of his size and because of his strength, he can leap from a good distance away from his enemy and still obviously make contact, get him on the ground, and do his damage. Now for short range, and this is actually the area where I think he's going to have the advantage, I'm going to give him a series of bludgeons and bites, but I'm obviously going to give him a big bonus in this area because he is a lot faster and he's going to be able to do a lot more blunt force trauma than I feel, in my opinion, your average kaiju, because of the fact that he's got those big forearms, he's a big monster, he's a gorilla, and I personally feel, in my opinion, while he is on the lower scale in terms of other kaijus and giant monsters, this is probably the one area where I feel he'll have an advantage. Now, obviously, he's got, like I said, got no projectile weapons like breath or anything like that, but it's still going to be an interesting match because I'm going to be pitting him against Gamera from back in the day. I'm not going to use the high side Gamera. And speaking of which, let's move on to him. Now, Gamera from the Showa era, not the Heisei era. This Gamera, I'm going to be very honest, if I use the Gamera from the Heisei area, it doesn't matter what King Kong I use, he's just going to rape him. I mean, there's no way King Kong can stand up to Gamera from Heisei, considering, if you've seen those 3 movies, the monsters that Gamera fought were far superior to King Kong, so it wouldn't be a close match. However, Gamera from the Showa series is very slow. Still very durable, much like the Heisei Gamera, and still has the fire breath, but doesn't have the plasma, at least for as far as I remember, from the chest and things of that nature. Now, for long range attack, obviously we're going to be using Gamera's fire, and that'll be his long range weapon, that he uses, and many times kind of like his finishing move, although he's been known to use it in the middle of the fight. Now, for mid range, I've seen Gamera do some pretty wicked things, and picking a mid-range attack is very difficult. He's never really seemed to have one. I mean, if you want to say his fire breath is a mid-range, that's fine, but we're already utilizing that for the long range. So I got a little bit creative, and I've seen Gamera take flight with his boosters from his feet and then still having his arms and his head out. Now, what I did was I wanted to leverage that and make what I call a rocket spear. In other words, he will stay at a low velocity, like regular level. He won't take flight high in the air, and he propels himself at his enemy with using his rocket boosters, basically tackling them to the ground, and or even picking them up and dragging them. He's been known to do that before. He did that against the I don't know the name of the monster, but it had tentacles and it had like a split head, and it's the one that impaled his chest back in the day. Don't remember his name though. But that's where I got the idea, because I remember that scene. Gamera flew him up into the air, the guy started to freeze up, and then he dropped him. So he's going to have a rocket-propelled spear takedown. So that'll be Gamera's mid-range attack. And then for close range, he's going to have a series of piercing abilities with those big, powerful jaws and those saber tooth coming from the bottom. He's going to be biting and clawing, and not really having blunt force trauma. He's really slow, so his opportunity is going to be to bite his enemy, because once you get those big teeth dug right into you, then I think you're going to have some issues, and it's going to be very interesting. Now, I got to be honest, this is going to be an interesting battle, because again, I really think that King Kong is at a disadvantage here, but I really did try to make this battle as close as possible. King Kong has the advantage in speed. Gamera has the advantage at range. King Kong, I think, has somewhat of an advantage at the close range with his speed and his bludgeon, but we have seen Gamera take a beating. So Gamera does have a bonus in the defensive area because of his shell, because of the fact that he's just a durable monster. He has taken so many different beatings and always seems to come out on top. So it's going to be a very interesting fight, but let's put it in the simulator. Let's start the countdown and let's see what the result is.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay guys, well there you have it. Actually a lot closer than I expected. 14-11, Gamera takes the victory. In the long range department, Gamera shut out King Kong. And you know what? It makes perfect sense. He's got fire, King Kong's throwing trees and rocks, Gamera's taken much worse than that. So a clear, makes perfect sense that he shut him out in the long range department. I think we could all agree with that. Now the mid range was very interesting. Because they were tied, and that's where most of the fight took place. So 10-10 was the mid-range. They each took each other out a series of times with their mid-range attacks. Very interesting. And then in the short range, once again, they took each other out once apiece. Obviously, King Kong bludgeoning Gamera to death. And Gamera probably hitting an artery with a saber tooth. So actually, you know, breaking it down like that, it makes perfect sense. I could kind of envision the battle going that way, where King Kong's best opportunity is to get closer range to Gamera to do some damage, but Gamera, with the fire and with the fact that he could spread it out pretty fairly, it makes perfect sense that he was able to get at least 3 victories with the fire. Obviously, King Kong, no victories with his long range. This can't really kill somebody throwing trees and rocks. or boulders, I should say. So, but anyway, an interesting battle nonetheless. I like the way the simulator came out with the results. I really didn't think it was going to be this close, but you know what? It turned out to be a closer battle than we expected. Gamera pulling out another close one, finding a way to win as always, utilizing his fire in the right time and catching that big saber tooth, probably in one of King Kong's arteries. The mid-range attack for both monsters obviously was a big battle. I mean, they duked it out a lot mid-range, which means Gamera was trying to keep King Kong at bay, and King Kong persistently tried to continue to get inside on Gamera. Very, very good battle. I would love to see this play out on screen one day if Toho and America could ever agree on something, but who knows. Anyway, guys, that's it for this fantasy battle. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for my next channel update where I will be announcing the 2 fantasy battles for the month of March. Take it easy.